Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, June 8th, 2026. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7 p.m. A warm welcome and greetings are extended to councillors, staff, delegations, and observers who will participate in this meeting, regardless of whether they are physically in attendance in the council chamber and Listowel or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers as able are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect to them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. To those who are viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today, by attending a meeting of the council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. I have regrets tonight from Deputy Mayor Callum and Councillor Andreessen, and we believe we're waiting on Councillor Johnston, who may come a little bit later in our meeting. Before we get going this evening with our regular agenda, we have a recognition section of our meeting, and tonight we honor a planned retirement. I'm going to call on North Perth CAO Chris Snell to join me and Mr. Mark Hackett in the circle for the purposes of that business.
He's being shy. So it's good evening, Council. It's certainly my pleasure to recognize Mark Hackett, who is planning on retiring at the end of this month. Over the past 2 decades, Mark has brought experience, reliability, and dedication to his role. Through changing priorities and demands of daily work, he has demonstrated a willingness to share knowledge and has shown support to coworkers and remained someone colleagues could count on. Mark has dedicated 20 years since 2006 to the municipality of North Perth, with 15 of those years in a senior leadership role. Mark's portfolio has changed over the years, but included such successes as the solid waste management program, including overseeing operations at the landfill, establishing the wheelie bin program, several environmentally sustainable initiatives, including establishing the municipality's first green team to help with the implementation of green projects across the municipality, instrumental in the successful tree planting and tree sale program, the annual curbside treasure hunt, which has been successfully run in the past 2 years, part of the emergency management role in being the alternate CEMC, including establishing warming and cooling centers, led the successful implementation of the water meter replacement program, which was a huge project across all of the water customers, and oversaw the successful operations of both the water and wastewater treatment plant during changing regulations and challenging situations. Mark has always brought commitment, dedication, and a sense of humor to his work that have garnered the respect of his colleagues, both inside and outside the municipality. His presence will be missed in the office. Please join me in congratulating Mark on this important milestone and wishing him a long and well-deserved retirement. Thank you, Mark.
As is my want, I will say a few words from up here. I remember when I first met Mark shortly after my election, and what struck me was the deep bass voice. And at the time, I was still conducting a choir, and I was thinking, I wonder if he sings. And I was getting a little bit excited about the possibility of recruiting him into the action of a choir. Alas, that didn't happen, and perhaps to your general comfort. But anyway, it's my privilege again, I think on behalf of council, to acknowledge your service over 2 decades here in North Perth, making a substantial difference to our community in terms of the real basic stuff that makes life worth and comfortable, worth living in our community. I can remember certainly a number of unusual requests made of Mark over the years, some coming from this mayor and some from council at times, that he had to find new paths for. And he was always very good at bringing new options to us as well. And I think that it should be a powerful testament to the success of your career here. It is much appreciated, and we are extremely grateful for your service and staying with it for the period that you did. You will be missed. And I've always enjoyed as I pop around the office, stopping by your office and saying hello and exchanging thoughts for the day, as we tend to do, and that will be missed. Colleagues, I'm going to invite you to come forward and greet Mark. Mark, please come forward. Thank you. So much appreciated.
Good. Thanks so much.
There we go. Okay. We have another little surprise here tonight. And we have conspired, the staff team and myself have conspired to recognize CAO Snell tonight. And he's muttering in the background. I can hear it. Recently, CAO Snell was recognized by the Ontario Municipal Administrators Association for 20 years of service as a CAO, both here and I believe in another location. Maybe we won't divulge that, I don't know. And so I have the letter here from Michael DeLulo, who is the OMAA outgoing president, who encouraged us to recognize CAO Snell at this meeting for his 20 years of service. It's an acknowledgement of Chris's hard work and dedication to the proud profession of an Ontario CAO. The OMAA Long Service Awards are unique because the criteria are very specific and requires service in the position of the CAO of a municipality. On behalf of the OMAA Board of Directors and my colleagues at OMAA, we ask that you add this letter to an upcoming council meeting, wish granted, inspired to by various members of staff. Chris, please come forward, and our congratulations to you. There you go. All right, thank you. And we had thought about an appropriate gift for CAO Snell, and I'm not sure that it was implemented, but I had suggested a toilet plunger. A symbolic gift, perhaps. All right, colleagues, enough of my bad humor, I suppose. Let's move to item 5 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. Members of council do have full lives with engagement in their communities. Sometimes they may find themselves with a potential financial or pecuniary interest in an item at the council table. Provincial legislation mandates councillors to declare this interest, and in so doing to avoid direct involvement in the consideration and/or voting on the item. I invite any councillor with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have already so declared in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session. Documentation is to be submitted, if not already done, pursuant to council procedures. Councillors may declare now or at any point in the meeting should such interest be recognized. Colleagues, any of you wishing to take the opportunity to declare a conflict? I am not seeing any expression of that, so as chair of this meeting, we'll move forward. I'll manage the flow of proceedings tonight and largely in accord with our agenda and the rules of procedure. Some may be participating remotely using web technologies. Should they wish to speak, they may draw the attention of this to the clerk using the text chat function in the technology. If technical difficulties arise for remote participants, I will advise. We do have IT staff on duty tonight to support. Let us now focus on the people's business. Part of that focus is achieved when those in the chamber silence and put away their phones. Regarding item 6 of our agenda, I have a resolution for our consideration to approve the agenda as follows, that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Nordham, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Blazek. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 7 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. Consent items are placed on our agenda because they're believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant council's recognition and or action. Grouping them tends to expedite our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, and individual action may do so. There are 37 items on our consent agenda tonight, not quite a record, but getting up there, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillors, anything to extract here or any corrections you'd like seen made to the minutes? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, council, staff, and public. Item 7.33, please.
Item 7.33, anyone else? Yep. Councillor Nordham, go ahead.
Thanks, Mark Kaysenberg. I would like to extract 7.2 and 7.3. Thank you.
7.2, 7.3, okay. And I think I'd like to request council to consider 7.27 as well. All right. Anyone else? Okay, let's proceed in the order these have been called out then. Councillor Rothwell will give you the floor for item 7.33.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg. 7.33 deals is a resolution from the town of South Bruce Peninsula regarding affirming outdoor education as an essential part of public education in Ontario. And I think it's important for council to consider supporting this resolution, given the fact that we have been working on programming at the Galbraith Conservation Area. And our hope is, in discussions with staff, is that either the Avon-Maitland or the Huron-Perth Catholic school boards would hopefully be able to utilize the area, the space there at the Galbraith Conservation Area for outdoor education activities, as well as programming throughout the summer by our Parks and Recreation Department. So if council is willing to support that, I'd be happy to move that we support the resolution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a mover for sending support to the resolution under item 7.33 on our consent agenda. Can I call for a seconder? Councillor Johnston, thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? I assume that we'll tailor the resolution so that we send to the appropriate authorities who should be receiving this. I would assume the Minister of Education might even be involved in this one. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, if the clerk's table is ready, then trigger that vote at your convenience. And that is carried. Let's turn to Councillor Nordum, item 7.2.
Thanks, Mayor Kasenberg. Good evening, council, staff, and members of the public. The reason I would like to pull this report out of the consent agenda is I think it's kind of an interesting incentive by the provincial government. And I wouldn't mind North Perth maybe taking a little bit of a deeper look into it. So in March of 2026, the province of Ontario announced amendments to regulations under the Liquor License and Control Act of 2019, expanding bring your own alcohol permits for outdoor public events. This is formerly known as the kind of a tailgating event. So at first, this initiative was more towards sporting events, but it could be more to public events such as farmers markets, arts and craft shows, neighborhood festivals, public performances. And this is up to local municipalities to decide if they want to take part in this program. I know some people might think negatively of this initiative, but I think we can treat adults like adults on this one. I come from a European background, and it's kind of night and day difference across the pond, how we treat alcohol. I think this is kind of an interesting idea from the provincial government, so I would like to maybe see some options from staff in a later report on this one. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So I assume that you would like a resolution that would direct staff to bring forward a report pertaining to appropriate implementation or engagement with this opportunity. Okay. I think the clerk can follow where we're going with that. All right. Do we have any feedback from staff? Does staff wish at this point to give us any feedback on potential direction on this matter? Clerk Klein.
Through the mayor, thank you. So through the staff report, we have outlined some of the concerns. We have had some preliminary kind of internal meetings regarding this new legislation, and we have also conversed with some of our community partners like public health, and we do have some concerns that are outlined in the staff report related to, public safety, risk management, liability for the municipality and all of that. But we'd be happy to bring back a report with outlining recommendations for implementation if council wishes to direct us to do so.
Okay, thank you. And I assume, Councillor Nordum, your intent is that you'd like to see this report that describes how we would move forward. Is that a fair assessment? All right. So if the resolution isn't crystal clear on that, perhaps we can refine that that's the intent. Okay, so moved by Councillor Nordum. Can I call for a second? Or Councillor Anstedt, thank you. Any discussion or debate on this resolution? Councillor clear on what the resolution intends? Okay. I'm not seeing any discussion or debate, hands waving at me. So if the clerk's table is ready, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Councillor Nerdum, item 7.3 as well.
Thanks, Mayor Caseberg. It's kind of sad with this weather today that we're going to be talking about snow. So 7.3, this report is winter operations plan looking at the 2026-2027 plan. Where I want to go in this report is the snow patrol section looking towards next year. A question I have for staff is, was there a difference in weekend patrol compared to previous seasons? The reason I ask is I know it was very much an old school winter last year, but some of our rural roads really lacked weekend maintenance service. I know on a few occasions we had a few vehicles stuck midday on some of our paved side roads, and a lot of that snow was from the previous night. And when I would ask an operator if they were called out that morning, they would say no. So, and I also received a fair bit of complaints from ratepayers as well on weekends. I got quite a few messages and phone calls. So I'm wondering if staff is going to maybe do something a little different maybe on our weekend services.
Okay, I see Mr. Ropp with us, our Director of Infrastructure Services. So Mr. Ropp, I think that might be your wheelhouse.
Through the mayor, I think I caught all the questions there. The first one being around our weekend patrol. So we do have a early morning weekend patrol, and we also have a midday patrol. So that hasn't changed in my tenure at the municipality. We did actually have a dedicated person working on the early morning weekend patrol. That's something that has changed since previous years. But in response to some of the questions around levels of service, so that's wholly decided by this council of what they'd like to see for levels of services on our road, and the plan doesn't deviate from that. It's basically just documenting, hopefully in plain language, to our staff and to council what through the bylaw and through the minimum maintenance standards, the service level that we provide on our roads. So yes, you're right. Further on in that report, we're trying to highlight some of the metrics that council can see year over year, winter over winter, what we see as far as snowfall, response days, material applied, and how that looks, so we can start defining what a normal winter looks like and what a more severe winter looks like. And no denying that, you know, some of these events were 24/7 events where they lasted multiple days, and in that report, it also defines, you know, our level of service does end at 8 o'clock every night. So if there's snow that comes down after 8 o'clock, and we're not back out there till the next morning, you'll see roads that, you know, can look like no one's been out there, but it's falling within our defined levels of service.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nerdum, supplementary.
Thanks for the response, Matt. Was this our first year that we had a dedicated person on our weekend patrols?
Through the mayor again, yes, we had a position that was hired specifically for weekend patrols. So they worked Saturday and Sunday every weekend.
Okay. Are we planning on continuing that into the 2026-2027 season?
Through the mayor, yes, and the reasons that we chose that position, it builds consistency. And before that, we were utilizing internal staff, so staff on top of working on call, we're also working standby, and we're finding that was asking a lot of our staff to be up early every morning, plus also having to jump into a truck, plus also being on call that weekend as well to respond to any situation throughout the 48-hour period of the weekend.
I do. Last one. If I did receive a complaint from a ratepayer, and I kind of agree with them too, because there was quite a few days where it was really bad and there was snow from the previous day, and I would ask an operator, like, were you called this morning? And then it'd be 10 a.m. and nope. So I think if we go into this season and it's kind of the same thing, I think we're going to have to change something up looking towards next season. Thank you.
Okay, is there any plan, Mr. Ropp, to reevaluate you know, the processes and procedures that Councillor Nordum is raising questions about, so that we may become continuingly more effective?
Through the mayor, sorry, I'm not aware of any of the situations that you're referring to, but we can definitely look into that. Obviously, we're trying to build consistency, so it's the same type of reaction 7 days a week, not just necessarily on the weekend or during Monday to Friday timeframes. So I will take that feedback. We're always looking at providing additional training opportunities for staff too, to make sure that we're making the right call at the right time to combat the winter conditions.
Okay, thank you. CAO Snell, did you want to add to this?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just ask to the council contact Matt or the director of infrastructure immediately once receiving a complaint, and we can act on it a lot sooner at the time it's happening versus waiting until June to have these conversations, and versus talking to an operator as well. If we get right conversations right with a director, we can maybe change our processes during the winter season.
Right, it makes some sense, certainly, because it reflects working at that sort of strategic level of operation, which does make sense in this case. It certainly was a hard winter, and certainly we heard at the county, Councillor Duncan and I heard at the county some of the distress that has happened there with regards to winter maintenance, so we know that there were challenges all around when it came to dealing with the snowmageddon that we seem to see for a second winter in a row. And here's hoping that we are shown some mercy in the near future on this one. But, you know, I think it is incumbent upon all of us to constantly be looking for incremental improvements so that we can make significant impacts in the quality of life in our community, which we're quite committed to. Councillor Rothwell, you seem to have your hand raised, or is that?
Great. Thanks very much, Mayor Kiesenberg. I just further to Councillor Nordham, I want to thank staff for the report. I think it was excellent. There was one metric, though, which was great to see all the different metrics in terms of amount of materials and so on applied and our lane kilometers and so on. The only metric, of course, which wasn't there was where our budget was in terms of the total amount that was spent. I'm sure we'll get to that at budget time, but I think we knew there was a number of challenges that we had, not just the number of snow days, but also receiving materials, specifically salt, and as to whether, like, the impact that had on us. But I think it was an eye-opener for myself and perhaps others in terms of the amount of snow and the amount of operation hours that are required to keep our roads safe. So thanks very much for that report.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Ropp. Okay, if we might then, I don't think there was further action at this point. Staff has heard the concern and will consider whether there are opportunities for improvement. We might turn to item 7.27. This is from northeastern Manitoulin and the islands. And the request is a resolution from that council towards the issues of healthcare system funding, particularly with regards to hospital funding. I can advise certainly that conversations have been held locally and regionally with hospitals regarding the funding status of those institutions. Hospitals are struggling. We're fairly fortunate, I think, in that our hospital has a long history of managing conservatively its budgets and plans. And so when they raise the flag and say we too are concerned, I think it's important for us to take note. I will remind, of course, that hospital and related health care is a provincial responsibility, and I continue to remain concerned that that when we intervene with local programming to support either physician recruitment or other endeavors, that we, to some degree, are letting the province off the hook from its responsibilities. And I'm not ashamed to say that I think there are times when the province fully expects that. With that said, I do believe that the case that was laid out in the resolution from northeastern Manitoulin is reasonably accurate and fulsome, and calls on the province to immediately get busy investing in appropriate system improvement because the system is not doing so well. So I'm going to suggest to council, I'd appreciate us sending a letter of support to Northeast Manitoulin and the islands for their resolution pertaining to hospital funding in Ontario. It's a big ask, there's no question. You know, we look at those kind of numbers and we kind of blanch. But, you know, all of us know how important the issue of healthcare is in our community. We've seen it even in our last budget survey where people were identifying that healthcare was a significant local priority and it's not even our swim lane. But here we are with the challenges that are being faced across the system, in some places worse than others. So colleagues, if you would be willing, I think we should entertain a resolution of support here. Councillor Johnston, will you serve as the mover on this one? Thank you. Councillor Blazek as our seconder, thank you. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. Last Saturday night, the Lister Memorial Hospital Foundation had their gala, which of course is raising funds specifically for the foundation, and they have specific equipment and other things that are required, which the province does not pay for. Councillor Hanstedt, Deputy Mayor Kellum, and myself were able to attend personally, and there is certainly incredible support within the community to raise those funds, which are necessary to keep high quality healthcare close to home, but they can only go so far. And I think I am fully in support of your concern, which many have expressed. I will note that both MP Nader and MPP Matt was there as well, Matthew Ray, and we did not obviously go into any specific details, but I think they know full well and should know full well is that we need to do better in terms of the province in particular and the federal government funding to a more appropriate level. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have this duly moved and seconded. Anyone else wishing to make comment? All right, if the clerk's table is ready, then let's bring up that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. All right, last opportunity. Anyone have anything else to extract in the consent agenda before we consider the general resolution? Not seeing it, so as follows, that consent items 7.1 to 7.37 be received for information in the minutes of the May 25th, 2026 regular council meeting be adopted. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Councillor Anstedt as our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. And just as sort of maybe being a tourist guide, I don't know, but Northeast Manitoulin and the islands is just a wonderful place to visit if you've never been. So I'm actually contemplating a trip there myself this summer. I'll have to meet the mayor and say hello on behalf of our council. All right, at this time it's proposed we move to item 8 on our agenda. We will now receive a delegation from one with interest in our council's business or authority. I remind the delegation that in accordance with this council's procedural bylaw, a total time of 10 minutes of presentation is permitted, with a question period to follow, the duration of which is at the discretion of the mayor. A delegation is to present on the topic declared, and the submitted request for delegation forms and deviations from the topic are generally not acceptable to the chair or the council. Decorum, as always, is required. Further to my request that we maintain an atmosphere of respect, of courtesy, and civility, I remind those delegating that they should not use the names of those who have not consented to such use. So let's turn to our delegation. The notes that I have indicate that the delegation tonight is from Kathy Halliday, but perhaps that's not the speaker, I don't know, who wishes to invite council to provide additional grant funding and support for a book on Wallace Township history. You're not a Kathy, I'm pretty sure. Please identify yourself. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Well, no, I am not Kathy, but Kathy is here, and I am Paul Cargus, and I am, have been a member of the Wallace History Committee for as long, I guess, as the committee has been functioning. It's about 10 years. Was, I think, the late Nerd Schneider, this was a, say, a pet project of his, and he was certainly very involved in putting the committee together. So I won't go into, I don't want to go into a lot of history. We have been diligently working for 10 years. We have been before you in the past, as recently as 3 years ago. And I believe that in the materials that were distributed, you would have an update that was given at that time. I don't intend to go through it. It did outline what we've been doing and what we were asking at that time, which was a grant. Because we needed to pay an editor. We had a lot of information, and we sought $15,000 from you at that time, which you granted, and we wish to thank you very much for that. The editor did complete the work. It turned out that we had more material than we initially thought, and I guess that's a good thing in terms of the product that we are producing. But we did stay within the budget. If you look at that report, I think it's on the second page somewhere, it indicates that we would be coming back to you, that when it came time to print, that we anticipated that we would be seeking a loan. And in regard to that loan, we also gave material, which I believe was distributed to you, to indicate that there is a quote there. The quote, I think, is in the area of $8,500, but we are requesting a loan of up to $12,500. I guess we're simply trying to be aware of the fact that it may be more than the quote. We certainly do our best to keep within the quote, but for contingencies and so on, we are seeking a loan of up to $12,500 from the municipality. As we've indicated, that is the one request we have, and it is in keeping with an earlier presentation. The second item that we're requesting is that when we actually get to the point of selling books, we would ask if the municipality could keep the inventory of books and record the sales. And so essentially, we just don't see ourselves as, in the committee, as setting up a sales area. We were hoping that the municipality would be able to handle the sales, handle the cash, and so on. And there'll be sales tax collected, et cetera. Those kinds of details, of course, would be have to be worked out. We'd not wish to be onerous in terms of asking staff to do a lot of work for us, but it would certainly be of great assistance to us if they could handle the sales. If there are any questions, be happy to answer them, or my three lovely colleagues might do a better job than I.
Kathy might yet get to work. Okay, thank you, Mr. Cargus. Colleagues, questions, comments? At this point in time, Councillor Blazek.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg, and thank you so much for your delegation today. I think that it might have gone without saying, but I would like to hear from staff about the capacity to do such a thing as far as your second request goes. And if there are any parameters or precedent set as far as loaning such programs or projects, funds from the municipality. Not in my time here, but I would certainly like to hear more about it.
Yep, makes sense to me. CEO Snell, how do you feel about answering this question? Both staff capacity and historical precedent around the request for a loan.
I mean, certainly even in my time here, I don't remember ever actually giving a loan out to one of our committees, but it's certainly something that we could do. Unfortunately, I would almost feel like I would need to have comments from the Director of Corporate Services and Mr. Romane to know exactly what the capacity is for selling books at the front counter. Unless Deputy CEO Little has more information than I have, I just don't know what the capacity is at the front counter on a day-to-day basis to sell and handle the books.
Okay. Thank you. It sounds to me like we may need to ask staff, a different staff person who's not here with us tonight, about that capacity, Mr. Kargas. What would Plan B be, if I may ask that question? If we couldn't fulfill your second request, which was about managing the inventory of the books and making it possible to sell the books from our office, what is the alternative that your committee has thought about?
Well, I'm not sure that I can present that to you, although if one of my colleagues wishes to respond to that, I'm happy to have them do so. David Bender is a person who was effectively, David Bender and Mert Schneider sort of spearheaded these activities going back in time. And since Mert's death, David has taken that responsibility, but he was not able to come this evening. He might be better able to speak to that question, what Plan B might be. It is indeed our hope that we could do it, do a liaison with the staff of the municipal office. And so perhaps we will have to have further discussions with them to see whether that's possible. And Plan B may be something that evolves as necessary.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Duncan.
I'm just curious. Originally, we had passed a motion to give 45,000. Can staff tell me, like, how much have we had at this point have we given?
Again, Mr. Romane's absent, but CEO Snell, are you able to access any information or have that at your availability?
My understanding to this date is the 45,000 and the 15,000 have been committed to the committee.
So a total of 60 then?
Yes.
Oh, I see the committee members shaking their head.
Okay. I know the 15 for sure.
Okay, 15 is what we've given?
My clear understanding is that the 15,000 is the sole amount. You have paid invoices to the editor on our behalf, and they total close to 15,000. The other, back in the presentation we made 3 years ago, there was a reference to the 45,000, and I guess our late chairperson, if I may call him that, Mert, was a good salesperson. He convinced council that 45,000 would be appropriate, but we did not spend 45,000. We spent 15, that's all.
So I guess where I'm kind of going with this is council had committed to a lot more money than we've given at this point. So I don't see a problem with finding a way to give the 12,000 to keep the project moving at this point, because we've already committed to far more than what's been given. So I'd definitely be in favor of somehow sorting this out. The staff needs to figure out the loan aspect, I guess, if that's the way we're gonna go, or if we're just gonna give this as a grant and then continue down the road that way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Councillor Duncan. I'm glad you dug in there and we have a little bit greater clarity on the total budget picture. Deputy CEO Little.
Through the mayor to Councillor Duncan, maybe what we can do is kind of take this all back, get a lay of the land and speak to our Director of Corporate Services, and then potentially determine a path forward. That way we can assess exactly how much funding has been given, what's been committed, and then work with the delegate in the group to kind of move this forward, if that would make sense for council.
Okay, Councillor Blazek, go ahead.
Thank you again, through you, Mayor Kiesenberg. I would like to hear from the committee on their like timeline, if there is specific pressures or deadlines that they need to meet before, you know, losing opportunities at printing press. So definitely want to know that. And secondly, and I really hope that I don't get myself in trouble for this from our library CEO, Ellen Whelan, but I would suggest if we have to look into a Plan B, that perhaps you guys might want to talk to her, and please don't get me in trouble.
Okay. Do you pledge you will not create trouble for Councillor Leslie?
I think I have to get legal counsel before I do that. Okay. Well, I appreciate the suggestion, and certainly there should be some, we need some clarity in terms of the amount that has to be expended. I'm quite certain that it is not in excess of the $15,000 at this point. And I certainly appreciate Councillor Duncan's suggestion. In terms of further support, our plan in terms of sales was that as sales occur, then we would repay the loan. However, if council in their wisdom were to determine that they should grant it, once again, sales, this was not a project that when we sell books that we would somehow find a means of going on vacation. It was intent that the municipality is supporting us. The proceeds would be, other than expenses that we incur directly, proceeds would go back to the municipality. And in terms of the inventory of the books, I believe that the original 1990 Magnified Memories book, I think that those books were inventoried by the municipality. Perhaps I'm wrong in that, but my understanding was at one time that they were kept at the municipal office. But
CEO Snell looks like he's nodding here, so let's let him in on the conversation.
Certainly, just regarding the 12,500, and especially don't want to hold the committee up. If council's comfortable, I think staff's comfortable with proceeding with, we can work out the details later, whether it's a grant or loan or, and certainly we did, I mean, I'm not sure how each individual municipality dealt with their history books prior to amalgamation, but during the amalgamation process, we ended up with all 3 history books in our inventory. They did take up a lot of space, which is space we don't have anymore in the municipal office, unfortunately. But I'm sure in talking to Ashton and library CEO, we can come up with something for a plan moving forward.
Okay. Sure. That sounds reasonable. So colleagues, I think maybe the question that we should consider is, do we want to give staff direction with regards to fulfilling the 12,500 request to get this thing printed at this point? You know, I think to Councillor Duncan's inquiry, if this council in the past has ratified a resolution that said that it intended to spend $45,000 with the committee on investing in this book, and we've only spent 15, then I think we should proceed to go ahead and make that money available at this point in time, and give staff direction to that end. And then as for, you know, the proceeds coming from the sale of the book, I mean, perhaps they can be given to the library or given back to the municipality. That's a matter that staff could attend to. But I think that might be the right way to proceed here, is to honor the original commitment of an earlier council and allow the leeway here on this so that we can get this done. Because I'm a bit of a history buff myself, Mr. Cargis, and have enjoyed, believe it or not, reading the almanac and reading Listowel Centennial at 100, and even the Perth County history book by Johnston. So, I think it would be exciting to have this book in circulation and available in our community. And I think there are others like me and like your committee who would like to see it happen. So, colleagues, do any of you have strong objection to the idea of saying, staff, let's go ahead and push this into production, support the printing of this book? It's a commitment that was made earlier, and we should honor that. Anyone objecting at this point? All right, so why don't we draft a resolution to that end at least, but, and then there may be another resolution with regards to directing staff around exploring alternatives for the management of the book inventory. Clerk Klein, Deputy Clerk Carter, you got something there that can work for us?
Through the mayor, we have a resolution drafted that essentially says staff is directed to proceed with the $12,000 500 request from the Wallace History Book Committee in alignment with the earlier commitment from North Perth Council to provide up to $45,000 towards this project.
Okay, sounds good. Anyone see anything wrong with that resolution? All right, can I call for a mover? Councillor Anstett, Councillor Duncan is our seconder. Thank you. Any discussion or debate on this one? I'm not seeing it. If you have that ready for us, let's have that vote. Okay, a couple of councillors have been booted out. So we have manual votes in favor from Councillor Duncan and Councillor Nordum. And that's all 8 of us. That's unanimous. Hey, that was probably better than you expected, right? Okay, next then is the issue of inventory. CAO Snell, Deputy CAO Little, do you want direction around like figuring out the inventory matter? And if so, what should that direction sound like?
It probably wouldn't hurt to have direction from council. I think it just, that corporate services draft a report regarding the sales of the Wallace History book from the municipality.
And the management of the inventory. Okay, you sort of got where that went? Before we dismiss the delegation, any concerns about what we're doing here?
Well, I want to sincerely thank you for the motion that you passed. It is timely in terms of the fact that we have a printing quote and it has a timeline on it. So we really appreciate your support. It will enable us to go ahead with it. And I don't wish to burden staff with the logistics of sales. Hopefully we can work something out that is not too great a burden for them, but gets the job done from our perspective.
And I trust that your committee will continue to market the book in the community and let people know in Wallace Township that the book is available and they should each want a copy. All right, let's turn to the clerk's table then. Do you have that resolution? Go for it.
Through the mayor, we have that staff be directed to report back on sales and inventory management of the Wallace History book by the municipality.
Sounds good. I think that sounds about right. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Rothwell. Councillor Nordum is our seconder on this one. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried.
Thank you very
Hat
much.
tip to your committee. Thank
you.
you for your volunteer hours and service. Applause isn't necessary. Thank you. But we look forward to the finished product. We do.
So do we.
All right, thank you. Let's bring up item 9 then in our agenda. First, we're going to consider an item from the Development and Protective Services Department as item 9.1. In item 9.1.1, Council is invited to consider an application from Euro Custom Homes to exempt lands and listable from part lot control. The affected parcels are known municipally as 232 to 256 Kiso Drive. This action typically introduces lot lines between units of townhouse dwellings. An earlier approval had lapsed related to 6 of the 10 proposed lots, as I understand it, in this block. And we see that Mr. Garland, a planner from the County of Perth who works on North Perth files, is with us to walk us through this report. As always, Mr. Garland, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of North Perth Council. I do not have a formal presentation set up for this application. It is a renewal. The previous application did expire in February of this year, so they're coming in for a reissuance of the new part lot control exemption. Once again, part lot control exemptions, they are required to be in a plan of subdivision and to meet the zoning requirements. These structures are actually currently built and are being lived in right now. There is one that's currently being sold, so some of the impetus to move it forward a little quicker than later. So I'm happy to address or answer any questions at this time, but once again.
Okay, colleagues, any questions that you wish to ask of Mr. Garland in terms of clarifying the report? I'm not seeing it, so I have a resolution for consideration as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the application PLC 1-2026 submitted by Euro Custom Homes, Inc. for the exemption of part lot control on lands legally described as Part Block 66 RP 40M 44M72, being all of PIN 53027-1785LT, listable in the municipality of North Perth, and forward it to the County of Perth for approval, and that the approved bylaws be provided to the municipality of North Perth to be registered on title. Is it bylaws plural or bylaw? Is it one, or I guess it's one? Yeah, okay. All right, can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Johnston. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 9.1.2. I don't, Mr. Garland, thank you. In this 9.1.2, sorry, council is invited to apply an exemption from draft plan approval of condominium and apply a vacant land condominium in 3 parts to the development known as Listowel Gardens. I'm again calling on Nathan Garland, our planner from the County of Perth, to talk about this one. It's a little different. Welcome, Mr. Garland.
Thank you again, Mayor Kiesenberg, members of North Perth Council. This is a slightly different application that we've brought forward. So I do have a short presentation outlined for council's information. It just outlines the process as well as what's being applied for and requested at this time. So this is a request for exemption for vacant land condo for them allowed to establish a condominium development without going through the typical condominium process where conditions are applied. The owners are Kalaminka Inc., and then the agent is Robinson Carpenter LLP, which is the law firm acting on that behalf. The municipal address is noted there. The property is locally known as Listowel Gardens, so that's the common name that's associated with it. So the request is for a residential and commercial plan of condominium. That is the subject parcel that's been outlined, showing the 3 units proposed, so 2 residential buildings as well as 1 commercial building that's being considered, as well as the associated parking. So the requested is to, I'll say, divide the property up into those individual condominium units with shared services such as the outdoor facility area, the pickleball court, and some of the accessible space. So those would be individual units with shared services. So there's 3 separate parcels being proposed with the commercial and then the 2 buildings associated. Just a bit of a, I'll say, outline of the process. So one of the requirements for a vacant land condo is that it receive the zoning approval and the site plan control. So site plan control, which controls stormwater management, easements, development services on the property. The application has gone through a public process previously through a zoning bylaw amendment, so it's not circumventing any of the public processing requirements. Those have gone through zoning bylaws previously on December 12, 2022. We are now requesting North Perth Council provide direction to the County of Perth to consider the application. So once again, it has the approval in place for the zoning as well as all components of the site plan. So functionally, North Perth has considered this through the site plan alteration bylaw. It has met all the requirements for stormwater, parking, ingress, egress, height, sight lines, etc. So once again, the zoning must be in place and have a site plan agreement registered on the property. And then also that North Perth staff have confirmed that there's no additional requirements as part of the site plan. So the securities are in place, those details have been addressed. Just a couple of pictures showing the one building being built right now. So that's just the backside looking from Twomley, looking east. And just a couple pictures from the Wendy's parking lot looking across towards the south of the ongoing buildings. So the one building's up, the amenity building's there as well too. They were putting in the pickleball court and they had just poured the foundation for the second building and they would be constructing that eventually. So therefore, it is County of Perth staff recommendation that North Perth Council recommend to the County of Perth that application NP 2601 is approved. I'm happy to address or answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Garland. Colleagues, questions, first comments? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd, and thanks very much through you to staff for the presentation. This is a very exciting project. It's the largest residential development project that North Perth has ever had, and it couldn't come at a better time in terms of providing additional dwelling and opportunities for those both on a rental and ownership side, and certainly in support. I do note also that we have a 2025 air photo. So this is, I believe, through Mayor Kaysenberg, hot off the press in terms of the overall air photography throughout the county, but North Perth specifically in our case. Is that true?
Through the mayor, that is correct. I believe the 2025 aerial photography was just released last week and uploaded to the county website. So that is absolutely correct.
Oh, there we go. A nuance I wouldn't have picked up, but very nice. Congratulations on that. All right, colleagues, any other questions or comments about this before we consider the resolution? Okay, as follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives a report dated June 8th, 2026, entitled Application for Exemption of Draft Plan Approval of Condominium, and that North Perth Council recommends to Perth County Council that vacant land condominium application NP 26-01 submitted by Canalamica Inc. affecting lands described as Part Lot 30, Concession 1, Elma Ward in the municipality of North Perth be approved and allow for the exemption of draft plan approval of condominium. Can I call for mover? Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Councillor Richardson as our seconder. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Garland. We're going to move to another member of staff for this one, item 9.1.3. Council is invited to enter into a renewed agreement related to tiered response that affects the North Perth Fire Department and Perth County Paramedic Services. Each of these entities provides some services, and the agreement proposed clarifies who does what when. I'll call on Jenny Pape, our Director of Development and Protective Services and Fire Chief, to walk us through this report. Welcome, Chief Pape.
Good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg and members of Council. I'm here tonight to present the Tiered Response Memorandum of Understanding between Perth County Paramedic Services and the North Perth Fire Department. The report is being brought forward in advance of upcoming provincial changes to emergency medical dispatching. For context, Perth County Paramedic Services operates under the Ambulance Act and the Ministry of Health requirements. The North Perth Fire Department operates under the Fire Protection and Prevention Act and council-approved levels of service. Tiered response is a system that determines when fire services are dispatched to medical calls. The goal is to ensure that we are responding when we add meaningful clinical and operational value. The current agreements are due for renewal, and this update aligns with upcoming provincial dispatch changes. The most significant driver to this update is the implementation of Medical Priority Dispatch Systems, or MPDS, which is expected in Perth County in November of this year. MPDS is a clinically validated dispatch model that is designed to match resources to patient condition and severity. In practical terms, it means more precise triaging of 911 calls, better alignment between the emergency and the response, and reduced unnecessary lights and sirens responses. It should be noted that MPDS is a provincially mandated change. Throughout this process, the MPFD has worked closely with Perth County Paramedic Services to ensure alignment with council-approved service levels. A key outcome is the development of a response plan matrix, which clearly defines when fire will be dispatched under MPDS and reflects clinical guidance and local operational realities. The matrix is flexible, and that allows for adjustments based on experience and evolving best practices. From an operational perspective, the MPFD will continue to respond to high acuity calls, including cardiac arrest, major trauma, respiratory emergencies, but will reduce lower acuity calls where NPFD response does not add value. Overall, this is about targeted evidence-based deployment, not a reduction in service quality. It will improve efficiency, responder safety, and patient outcomes. There are no direct financial implications tied to the signing of the MOU. There may be some reduced costs due to fewer lower acuity calls. However, it is likely that that will be balanced by community growth and call volume increases over time. Service levels will remain unchanged. I'd be pleased to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Chief Pape. Colleagues, questions, first comments? I'm not seeing any. Thank you. So let's consider the resolution. That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives the Perth County Paramedic Services Report titled Tiered Response Paramedic and Fire Services 2026, dated June 4th, 2026, and that Council authorizes the execution of a Tiered Response Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, between Perth County Paramedic Services and the North Perth Fire Department. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Duncan, seconded by Councillor Blazek. Thank you. Any discussion or debate? I'm not seeing any evidence of that, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Chief Pape. All right, next we have an item from the Strategic Initiatives Department is item 9.2 of our agenda, and item 9.2.1, Council is invited to consider executing a memorandum of understanding with the Listowel Wingham Hospital Alliance pertaining to grants and gifts offered from the municipality's purse to support hospital health care in our community. Council may recall identifying some issues with an earlier draft of the proposed document brought to us by the Hospital Alliance. I'm going to call on CAO Snell, who's standing in for Director of Strategic Initiatives, Jessica McLean, to bring us up to speed on the language changes and propositions here. Welcome, CAO Snell.
Thank you again, Council. As you can see from the report prepared by Jessica, we have an updated agreement with comments both from Council, staff, and the municipal solicitor that were brought back to the Physician Recruitment Committee and are outlined in the graph provided by Jessica. The most important aspects of the changes are the term of the agreement is now a 3-year agreement, so every term of council will get to see the agreement. Withdrawal or termination clause is much shorter. Previously it was 1 year, now it's 6 months. And the budget planning process is much more aligned with our own budget planning. And changes around the indemnity clauses, which was noted by our solicitor. So at this time, staff are recommending that we're satisfied with the changes as far as an operational standpoint, and does give council the flexibility to adjust their direction in the future if they so choose to, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the agreement.
Thank you, CEO Snell. Any discussion, first comments or questions? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and through you. Thanks, Chris, for standing in for the report. Just the question about the 3-year agreement time. So at some point, there's going to be a council that's actually not going to see this agreement, like during, and this isn't trying to be terribly nitpicky, but I think if we do get in that situation, perhaps we would want to make sure that the council in place at that time in your term 4 or 5, whatever it is, that council is very well aware of what the agreement says and when the next agreement would be coming forward. That's my only comment. Thank you.
And we could adjust the next term to be possibly 4 years, so that every council does get to see it. Good point.
Anyone else? I have to own that I continue not to like this agreement, and I don't like it because I think, again, it's sending messages to the province that we're prepared to step in and support things that the province needs to do. And I also struggle with the idea that we need to enter into some kind of agreement with the hospital to essentially give them a grant. I don't understand why we need an agreement to govern that, but nevertheless, the will of council be done on this matter. Colleagues, anyone else with comments or questions? Okay. I think we need a resolution, don't we? As follows, that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth authorizes the mayor and the clerk to sign the memorandum of understanding with Listowel Memorial Hospital, Listowel Memorial Hospital Foundation, and Listowel Wingham and Area Family Health Team for the purposes of physician recruitment. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Nordum. Any further discussion or debate? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. I certainly share your concern as expressed. The problem is the way I see it, and I think the reason why that perhaps this council decided to proceed is that if we don't, then what? Because we have asked, requested, demanded, not just North Perth, but every municipality in Ontario has asked for broader funding, provincially especially, to little or no great avail. So if not us, then who is always the question. So is this a matter that certainly the will of council, as you say, is that we move forward with this agreement? If it is, I'm certainly in support of moving forward, but it does not mean that we take our foot off the pedal, so to speak, in our ongoing concerns expressed to the province regarding the lack of significant funding which is steady and constant in terms of the needs of healthcare. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm not seeing it. It's duly moved and seconded, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, CEO Snell, for stepping in for Ms. McLean. Let's turn to an item from the Department of Infrastructure Services. It's item 9.3 on our agenda. In item 9.3.1, staff bring forward a report on urban settlement speed reduction, supplementary to an earlier council request. I'll call on Director of Infrastructure Services, Matt Ropp, to tell us more about this option and address any questions. Welcome, Mr. Ropp.
Good evening, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of councils and public. I'm here tonight to provide an overview of the supplementary report on urban speed settlement speed reductions and walk through the approach staff are recommending. Following council's direction from April, staff reviewed available statistical data and existing public input. The most recent and relevant engagement comes from the 2024 Transportation Master Plan, which included 225 survey responses across 3 rounds of consultation. What the feedback showed is that while speeding is certainly a concern, it represents only a part of a broader set of transportation and road safety issues. Residents are also concerned about roadway design, pedestrian safety, traffic volumes, and overall visibility and conditions. Although the TMP includes a traffic management framework, it was not intended to fully address traffic safety on its own. Based on this, staff did consider council's direction to undertake additional public consultation that focused solely on posted speed reductions. However, given the broader range of safety concerns, staff are of the view that a narrowly focused survey on speed limits alone would not capture the full scope of traffic safety issues within the municipality. At the same time, staff reviewed available enforcement data from Perth County OPP. That data confirms that speed remains the most common traffic offense in our area. However, there is currently limited local data that directly ties posted speed limits to collisions or injury outcomes within North Perth's urban areas. Taken together, this tells us 2 things. First, action on speed is warranted. But second, speed reduction alone will not fully address the range of traffic safety concerns being raised. Based on this, staff are recommending a phased approach that allows the municipality to take immediate action while also setting the stage for a more comprehensive long-term strategy. Phase 1 focuses on implementing reduced speeding limits in school zones, being 30 kilometers per hour in urban areas and 60 kilometers in rural areas. This targets high-risk locations, aligns with best practices, and can be implemented quickly using existing budgets. It represents a practical and meaningful first step to improve safety, particularly for children and other vulnerable users. Phase 2 would involve developing a comprehensive traffic safety strategy. You may have heard these and other municipalities being referred to as Vision Zero strategies. This strategy would involve community input, take a broader data-driven look at road safety, and take a broader data-driven look at road safety across the municipality, ultimately providing council and staff with framework to guide decisions on implementation. Staff are therefore recommending that council proceed with phase 1 at this time and direct staff to return as part of the 2027 budget process with options and resource requirements for implementing of phase 2. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Colleagues, questions or first comments? Councillor Duncan.
I'd like to thank Matt for the report to start with, and I think it's a very timely and good option to implement the phase 1 immediately and move on to the comprehensive traffic safety strategy to help alleviate some of the concerns that we discussed previously when this was brought forward.
Our community is not shy in letting us know when there are concerns. Anyone else? Councillor Nordum, looks like you're leaning in.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Kieseberg. Thanks for the report, Matt. Just going back to the OPP data, that's detachment. So is that kind of all of North Perth, or is that kind of like the urban settlement with those, with that kind of data?
Was it detachment board level data? Because if it was, then it's going to include Perth East and West Perth in the data set, right?
So
Or did we extract to North Perth?
through the mayor, no, I was not able to pull out North Perth data. I was looking at it from a county level.
Yeah. Not the full county, because Perth South's not involved in the OPP data, but the OPP data would represent the 3 lower tiers that are part of the detachment board.
And then secondary, just curious on our current speed limits at the school zones currently. Are we already at the 60 in rural, and then is it 40 in Listowel, and then it's double the community safety zone, so fines double, I believe?
Yep, through the mayor, so correct, all of our current rural school zones, being both on line 87, are set at 60 kilometers per hour. All school zones within Listowel, with the exception of the Catholic school, are set at 40K. The Catholic school is currently set at 50 kilometers an hour. And all schools, rural and urban, are within community safety zones, so that does include the double or increased fines that you were referring to.
And then another comment I would make, when I read the report, it talked about lane narrowing as a potential. I just want to speak towards, we still have a fair bit of agriculture traffic that kind of comes in and out of towns or Atwood or Moncton. I just say this because going through Drayton, they just recently narrowed their lanes, and they have some signs in the middle, and after a month they look pretty beat up after getting run over by duels many times. So I just want to make that comment. So that's one thing to look for.
And there are certainly some narrow streets in Listowel in particular. I can think of Reserve, where there are parts that are quite narrow, and that narrowed area lends itself to significant safety risk in terms of sight lines and so forth, right? So I think the idea of a comprehensive strategy here is probably a very sound one at this point in time, even though it's going to cost us a few bucks. Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and through you, thanks, Matt, for the report for you and your staff. The first report, I mentioned the issue of the fact that in front of the high school, there's not a speed reduction sign at all, even though it is where many students do cross. They've somewhere in the order of just under 1,000 students are coming to that. And obviously, they don't all come from the north end, but they are crossing. There is a crosswalk on the west side there, but anyone that's traveled there, and we have this conversation, quite often they'll cross mid-block as well. I still believe that there's a need for a speed reduction at that point. Nevertheless, my next question deals specifically as to whether or not these speeds, if council agrees, are going to be 24/7. Like there are some locations where speed reductions are while a light is flashing, for example. I think we've seen those. I don't believe that's what is shown in the report as the suggested alternative. But perhaps we could, through the mayor, just ask as to whether or not we talked about the merits of having something like that, so that in times, for example, in the summertime, when schools are not in session, as to whether or not that would be appropriate, or is it because it's a school zone and those facilities could be used on off days or times of the year by other members of the public. So thanks very much.
Through the mayor, so like the first part of that question as a follow-up to this council resolution would be staff coming back to this council as part of our traffic and parking bylaw. Because these signs that we're talking about referring to are regulatory signs, so we would have to do amendment to our traffic and parking bylaw, which again, we would show you exactly the defined limits of each of these school zones. At this point, we are recommending from a staff level that these would be permanent 24-hour zones. Yes, there are options, and the Ontario traffic manuals do provide alternatives for setting time limits for school zones and adding, fancy flashing lights. And some of that regulation has recently changed with the elimination of speed reduction cameras, so there's still a bit more homework for staff to do before we come back. But I would just remind council to be cognizant of not all of our school zones function as 8 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon school. A lot of them are turning into like multi-campus event spaces where, there are events going on the weekend, there are events going on till sometimes dusk at night for other sporting events that are going on. So it's trying to build a recognition that yes, it's a school zone, but there are other activities that happen, maybe more taking the approach of the community safety zone. It's a focal point in our community that we're trying to recognize that it's a permanent speed reduction in that area 24/7.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blazek.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg, and thank you for that reminder, because that is very much true. And I pick up kids at dusk as other kids are running back and forth at that time of day, and it is very hard to see them. So thank you for that reminder. In this traffic safety study, I'm going to ask you a question if this can be included in this, but I'll give an analogy first. So recently, there was an incident at Wallace and Elizabeth that required that corner to be closed for hours upon hours. And I walked north of that closure multiple times that day to sort of check on the traffic situation and get some exercise. And I noticed significant concerns about large trucks. At one point, I watched a truck with 2 large trailers trying to turn to avoid the closure. And so I'm wondering if this traffic safety study is going to include alternatives like that in the event that emergency services need to close roads. Can we close them at specific points in order to try and direct traffic, especially those the really heavy vehicles and machinery that we get on these small town roads, to make it more safe and appropriate? Because I was watching vehicles go over sidewalks and all sorts of things.
Through the mayor, so that incident was a little bit hard for staff to manage because we weren't getting a lot of details from our partners on what they needed from the municipalities. So, if it was meaning to or ended up to being that duration of a closure. You know, a detour would have been very beneficial, but we weren't able to support OPP in that manner just because we weren't able to get information from them. But I'll take that point back of having those types of ideas. If primarily if it's our downtown core, if there's a closure, it really affects how the traffic flows through this town in all four directions. So that's a good speaking point of for future events, if there's a need for an emergency or some type of closure in our downtown core, how we could address that to try and avoid some of the situations that you referred to.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Johnston, then Councillor Anstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and great report, Matt. Wholeheartedly agree with Phase 1 ASAP. I think it's great. With regard to the traffic safety strategy, you talk about road design and traffic calming measures. Is that speed bumps? Or have we ever considered speed bumps? And if we do, how do speed bumps and snowplows work together?
Through the mayor, I'll maybe answer the second question first. They're not ideal for snowplows. No. They can be utilized though, but they're not a deal breaker. But they're very hard on equipment, and if a staff member doesn't know that they're there, they'll find out sure enough as pieces start flying off the truck. There are many different forms and facets of traffic calming, and some of those were listed out in the transportation master plan. Again, this is not the easiest subject to define or stick with one side or the other, but there's definitely a difference between traffic congestion and moving traffic through our community and traffic safety. And there are some forms of those that meld in between the two of them, but when you're talking, people want to put a traffic hump in, or I think Councillor Nordum talked about signs that kind of restrict the width. You're looking at what you're ultimately trying to achieve. Yes, if it's reducing speed, but reducing speed down to what extent? People still have to move throughout the community. And when I was mentioning the comprehensive assessment, it's really trying to understand within our community too, because I would say at this point, we're still lacking a lot of data that really drives a lot of these decisions, especially when it's residents calling and asking, what can we do on their street? And what we need to understand is where's the highest priority, or where's our best fit going to be in this community to implement the type of measures that we need to improve safety, right? And then also considering what that impact has on moving traffic throughout the community too. So it's a very complex conversation, and yes, I do get that question almost weekly now of people wanting to know what we're doing next. So hence the report.
Thanks, Mark Hasenberg, through you, and thanks, Matt, for the report. I'll just be quick here because everybody else has had a go here. But just for Phase 1, fully agree with that. I apologize if I missed it, but in terms of timeline, will we have this done for school in September, when school returns?
Through the mayor, that's the goal. Okay. We were seeking direction tonight if we do go with this, so that we can order the signs, get the materials in place, and the goal would be to have everything, traffic bylaw in front of council, and have everything installed for the 1st of September.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Anyone else with questions or comments? Okay, I have a resolution. It is in two parts. Does council, anyone object to hearing both of the parts at this point? All right. As follows, the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to implement Phase 1 school zone speed reductions from the Urban Settlement Speed Reduction Supplementary Report dated June 8th, 2026, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth directs staff to bring forward as part of the 2027 budget deliberations options for implementing Phase 2 comprehensive traffic safety strategy. Can I call for a mover on this? Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Blazek. Any discussion or debate? Sorry, I have to log back in here. It kicked me out. I'm not seeing any, so let's have... Oh, we got over that way? You need to look over that way, apparently. All right, go ahead, Councillor Nordum.
Thanks, Mayor Kiesenberg. One thing, I don't really think implementing Phase 2, a 40K area wide on local collector roads in the urban settlement will make much of a difference. I think it will just make a lot more signs at intersections. I know municipalities have a Vision Zero strategy, but in honesty, we can't really wrap everyone in bubble wrap. I don't think making some of our wide roads with no overnight parking, a 40K will be very effective. The previous method of North Perth has always been kind of maybe add in an extra all-way stop. But another issue I have with this motion is that it's going towards the budget process. And currently, right now, it's no longer kind of a council budget, it is a mayoral budget, so it's a strong mayor. So I'm not sure if we as council will have much input. It depends on what kind of mayor that we have in the fall. But it's one thing to think of with this motion. So that's one of my concerns. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with comments, discussion, points? Not seeing it. It's duly moved and seconded. I think we can have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Ropp, for your work on this. That allows us to move on to item 10 on our agenda. Does any member of council wish leave to get a report from either staff or one of our committees? Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg and Council. I would like to request a report from staff regarding update on the status of the Alma Memorial Community Center renovation and renewal project. This has been in the works for some time, and there is a commitment which the Atwood Lions have made, very generous, I think up to $1 million for that project. I know there have been meetings, and there has been work done, but perhaps if council agrees, we could have a update report regarding that project and its status. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll turn to Deputy CAO Little. I think she may have some comments to make, given that the department falls under her jurisdiction.
Sure, thank you. Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Rothwell. You are correct. There has been a significant amount of work led by our facilities team and working with the Atwood Lions as well. We've received some internal updates, but staff would be happy to bring forward a report just to provide an update to council. The significant work that needs to happen to actually implement the project is still several years away, but we're happy to provide an update to council and to the community as well.
Okay, thank you. Do you need direction? You comfortable with just bringing? I think it was intended that there'd be a report brought to council in the near future anyway, from what I understand from Mr. Newell, so. Okay, anyone else with report request? All right, let's move to item 11. We have no items of correspondence for our consideration or disposition tonight. That means we can turn to consideration of bylaws that have been recommended to us for action. Tonight, we have 3 bylaws for our consideration, and the enabling resolution, as always, outlines for each bylaw their number and purpose. Before I read the resolution for passing these bylaws, does any councillor wish to extract one or more of them for a more fulsome consideration or an individual or recorded vote? I'm not seeing evidence of that, so I'll read the resolution into the record as follows: that the following bylaws are hereby passed. 43-2026 being a bylaw to delegate certain administrative powers and duties. 44-2026 being a bylaw to exempt from part lot control reference plan 44M72, block 66, 44R6072, listable in the municipality of North Perth, being all of parts 1 through 22, 232 to 256 Keeso Lane. And that bylaw 30-2026 being a bylaw to provide for drainage works for the Trowbridge drain be read a 3rd time and be finally passed. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Duncan, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Johnston. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 13 on our agenda. Does any councillor wish leave to give notice of motion for our next meeting? Not seeing it. That brings us to item 14 on our agenda. For item 14, are there any announcements that would be a benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? Not seeing that. We have, we can move forward then. We have one resolution to be considered in a closed session meeting of council. I'll now read the resolution that both explains and enables our action to enter closed session. It is as follows: that council proceeds in camera at 8:34 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to the following: a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board regarding property described as Plan 253, Lot 23, Elma, municipally known as 214A Main Street, Atwood. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Anstett, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. All right, we're going to move into a closed session meeting. That means we can close the doors to the chamber. We can adjust the audiovisual settings so that we can hold our meeting in confidence. And at this time, we'll await those changes. All right, council has held its closed session and did discuss the matter that was identified in our enabling resolution for that session. Council did give staff direction pertaining to the matter that was considered, the essence of which will remain confidential at this time for the reasons stipulated in our enablement of closed session. As a mandated good practice, council acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of this meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. I'll now read an enabling resolution for our confirmatory bylaw, which is number 45-2026. It is as follows. That bylaw 45-2026 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth is hereby passed. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Nordum, seconded by Councillor Anstett. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Colleagues, for our bylaws that touch on provincial priorities considered and passed at tonight's meeting, I will not execute a veto. This information will be provided to the clerk as part of my required duties as mayor. We have completed deliberation and taken action on the business that has come before us tonight. It is thus appropriate for us to consider adjournment. I have a motion to that effect as follows. The council meeting adjourns at 8:47 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, June 22nd, 2026 at 7 p.m. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Anstett. Thank you. It's not a debatable motion, so let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. Colleagues, our next regular council meeting is Monday, June 22nd at 7 p.m. I will probably arrive late to that meeting. I'm involved in the commencement ceremonies at Westfield. And so I have asked Deputy Mayor Kellum to take the chair until I arrive. It may be that I won't arrive, depending on how that meeting goes. So until our next meeting, the council is adjourned.